And we are back. Vin and Dave's Destination Unknown. Good evening, sir.
And behold, I saw a pale horse, and on him rode death, and hell came with him.
Are you doing the Undertaker right now?
No, well, it's kind of an Undertaker, Johnny Cash kind of thing. But,
Johnny Cash.
Yeah, you know.
Yes, there you go.
Can't quite get all the ancient in my voice that Johnny Cash had before he died. That was amazing.
Yeah, so that's the topic. Sorry we're a little bit late, guys.
Things happen.
Yeah, I forgot the cables to one of these mics because I packed everything up because we did Liberty Forum this last weekend. That's why there was no Destination Unknown.
We did. It was fantastic. It was a great experience. What has been called a 15-hour epic live stream, and it was mighty epic, I must say.
I had a good time. I was worn out. I didn't get to fully enjoy the after festivities as I would have liked to, but great people as always. A lot of fun. Good to catch up with people, see everybody in one place, have a few drinks and everything. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah,
I got memed. So I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
You did, and it was really, really cool. It was actually a really creative and really good meme. So yeah, that was fun. But I had a topic that I wanted to talk about. Then we didn't do Destination Unknown because I was just too worn out. But I did have a topic that I wanted to, that was sort of like hanging out in my mind, and I was like, this would be what I would want to talk about. And yeah,
let's
do that today.
Let us talk about that. But first, let's talk about our good buddy Glenn.
Ah, yes.
And this phenomenal wine that he has sent us. This is the Ravana Cabernet Sauvignon 2015 Terroir series. Terroir.
Yes. Terroir. I believe it's terroir.
Yeah, it's phenomenal wine. And honestly, like, I had so much fun hanging out with Glenn. Glenn's a great guy, and we had just a wonderful time all throughout Liberty Forum, meeting all kinds of awesome people. Good stuff.
Yeah, he left Liberty Forum with a bottle of baby vodka that had been engraved by you. So yes. That's awesome. Enjoy that in good health, Glenn, and thank you for all of the libations that you brought for everybody there. We had quite the crew, and we did several tastings of wine and rum. I think there was some port in there. I guess that's wine. It was a blast. It was a blast. For sure. So, yes, thank you, Glenn. I think we're doing this bottle, and then we have another bottle for next time, right?
Yes.
And you have a... Where'd you get that? I didn't get a bag like that. The Liberty Forum bag? I didn't get a bag like that.
Glenn gave it to me. So,
Glenn gave you the Liberty Forum bag?
Indeed.
This guy's way more connected than I even knew. That's an awesome bag. So, cheers, Glenn. Cheers to you. If people want to go, I just, as you were talking about the wine, I just went on and we will be checking out our Bitbacker tonight, bitbacker.io/powerchat/Vin Armani.
And we had a chance to talk to the
JJ Hales
founder.
Yes, he is the founder, the creator of Bitbacker. That's one of the interviews that we did. Before the show, we were talking about the fact that we're going to go ahead and separate out those interviews because, like you said, it was a marathon session. But the individual ones are all good. They're like between 15 minutes and a half hour, most of them. Talked to some, of course, there were great Liberty people, but we had some crypto people too. We had JJ Hales. We had Chris Pacia. We spoke to Naomi Brockwell and Derek J. of AnyPay. And, actually kind of a famous character here around the Liberty scene in New Hampshire, but to crypto heads known for AnyPay. And he set up the hotel bar there with the AnyPay system. So people were paying for their drinks with Bitcoin. The artist formerly known as Mance Raider, Pete Raymond, was there. He said that was the highlight. We've got an interview with him as well. He said that was the highlight of his Liberty Forum was
We actually have 2 interviews with him.
we have 2. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. To be able to pay in Bitcoin for his cocktails. What one of the highlights for me was, which was really cool, was just right before the Ross Ulbricht fundraiser, which not a dry eye in the house, I might add. During after Lynn was done speaking, I'm on my way in. I'm like, I'm gonna get a cocktail. Rolled up. Oh shit! AnyPay. Boom. Paid with Cointext. Paid with Cointext because AnyPay's got the Cointext integration in there. So that was like, that was pretty cool. That was one of those moments. And even the bartender was like, wait. What did you just do? I haven't seen anybody pay with a text message yet. That's what? Oh my God, that's so cool. And
Did you just text me some money? What?
And I was like, that's my company, man. That's my I did that. That's cool. But it's one of those, it's like they say the fish that you caught tastes the best.
Yeah.
So it was like, that was a hell of a vodka soda, I will tell you. That was a hell of a vodka soda. So
No, it wasn't like baby vodka, but it was still good vodka.
No, it wasn't baby vodka, but it was actually just whatever was in the well. But fish that you caught, man. So we didn't do Destination Unknown.
Yep. But we did provide 15 hours of live stream entertainment for our fans, so I don't feel that bad about it.
We did, and there were some very, very interesting interviews during that time. And one of the things that I don't know if it came up in an interview, but it came up in speaking with Chris Pacia, because last week Craig Wright just went ahead, and I think it had just reached a point where he was like, you know what? It can't get any worse. I may as well just be like, fuck it, I'm Satoshi. No more beating around the bush. It's me. I'm just going to start referring to Bitcoin as my creation. I created this. This is what I made, and all of that, which it's complete bullshit. But
and the surprising thing was the entire internet believed him immediately.
you got to put the /s so that people know it's sarcasm. You know.
Oh, it wasn't enough in my voice there. Okay. The entire internet believed him.
This guy. Well, and what occurred to me was, you said before the show that I had been getting biblical in Twitter, which I have been, which is true. Since my last book, I've sort of had the general, like, this kernel of what the next book that I was writing would be about, right?
The Apocalypse of Saint Vin. No? Oh, okay.
No, but it is biblical. Like, I knew the title because I knew that, like, there was this concept, this, what is it, like a thread, I guess. There was this thread where I was like, ooh, that's an interesting thread. Like, I want to pull on that thread. And it's the render unto Caesar story that's in the Gospels, and how it ties into Bitcoin, like how it's directly related to it, the idea. So for people who don't know the render unto Caesar story, it's in I think it's in 4 of the Gospels. It's at least in 3, but it's basically all the same, that the Pharisees basically send some spies they're trying to catch Jesus up, right? They're trying to figure out a way, let's let him do something so that we can have the Romans kill his ass. Mm-hmm. So the Romans are at that time, the Romans are what would you say? They are the military power. They have the monopoly on violent force. They're the state.
Yeah.
They're the state of Judea at that time, at Jesus' time. But the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the priest class of the Jews, are allowed to remain by the Romans. So they have their own little, like, power base in the temple. And so they're able to make money off we've talked about it on the show, the temple changing of money. That was one of the, don't worry, they didn't hear that. That was one of the things that Jesus got in trouble for, was flipping over the money changers' table. So that was him, like, going after the financial power base and the political power base of the Jews, but they didn't have the political power to kill his ass, right? Like they couldn't just go run rampant and kill people. They didn't have the monopoly on violence anymore. They had to get the Romans to do that.
Yeah, because the Romans really didn't care.
They didn't give a shit.
Yeah, they were just like, hey, you Jews take care of your own problems.
Right, yeah.
You know.
This is like, to them, that's a joke. Like, that temple was a joke. Like, it's like, okay, well, what happens in the temple stays in the temple. Like, you guys got to deal with that on your own. That's like, that's not our job. And that we even see that in the Jesus story, where Pontius Pilate is kind of like, what am I killing this dude for again?
Yeah.
Like, he hasn't really broken Roman law, so I don't know what is the deal, right? So they're trying to catch him up. And they send some spies, and basically what they're like, hey, Jesus, should we pay taxes? Like, what's the deal? Should we pay taxes to Rome? And he's like, okay, I see what you're trying to do here. Like, clearly you're trying to catch me out here and trying to get me in trouble. So he's like, bring me a penny, or it's a coin. Mm-hmm. Whose picture's on the coin? They say Caesar's. He says, okay, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, render unto God that which is God's. And they're like, all the Gospels say they went away amazed. They were like amazed. Mm-hmm. But you think about it, that they were like, oh, damn, that's so smart what he just said. Shit. Shit. Yeah, okay. Damn.
Yeah, because their expectation was he was going to advocate for them to not pay taxes. And by, advocating for that, he could be put to death, he could be tried, whatever.
Exactly.
And so by sidestepping the question in a masterful way...
But is he sidestepping? That's and that was the thread, right? So for me, I was like, is this a thread? Because if you play that out to like Bitcoin, and it's like, oh, that's not even a sidestep. That's just a reframe. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it's not like some tricky... It's not, when you're talking in the context of cryptocurrency, it's not like some tricky thing, because I think it's a reasonable question, especially since, like, the state, at least in the U.S., already the taxes around Bitcoin the expectation is that you're going to pay capital gains on Bitcoin, but you have to pay those capital gains taxes. You can't pay those capital gains taxes in Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. You have to pay those capital gains taxes in fiat. So you actually have to cash out to put it into what Caesar's face is on, to render it unto Caesar. Like, so the idea is, if there is an economy that is completely Bitcoin, like if I get paid in Bitcoin, if I buy my groceries in Bitcoin, if I pay my mortgage in Bitcoin, if I pay my car note in Bitcoin, everything I do is in Bitcoin, like, render unto Caesar. Like, how does that work? So that was a thread where I was like, okay. So the last 4 years, there was some little period about 4 years ago, where I don't know, I had all these weird revelations. I was going into revelations. I was just digging in, particularly into Genesis, like just really digging in. Wrote this rather long sort of analysis, critique, whatever you want to call it. Did this Ascendant Project video series. People can go and check that out. But with this Craig Wright thing, I was like, I feel like there's something biblical to this, because I guess my mind was already in that place starting in about January, where I was like, okay, it's time to write this book now. I've got all the pieces. And then he did this, and I was like, false prophet. But it just got me to looking more. I was like, okay, I'm going to look a little more in Revelations and think a little more about this. And what's kept on coming up throughout the week, and what I wanted to talk about, was like the idea of the apocalypse. Apocalypse really meaning like the uncovering or the revealing, which is why the book is called Revelation. We don't think about it that way. Apocalypse is like everything's blowing up. But what it really just means is everything that it's like when the kids at the end of Scooby-Doo pulled the mask. Like, that's apocalypsis. That's the removal of the veil, the removal of the mask. Everything comes off. Everything's laid on the table. It's all revealed. It's like, here it is.
Disclosure is coming.
Disclosures. It's but I think it's the idea that like is that what the end really is? You know, is the end really that, okay, here it is, here's the reveal, here's who done it, and okay. But I guess then the game has to start over again.
Or continue on with the new paradigm, right? Because once what has been hidden is revealed, then, you know, I mean, literally the timeline is infinite. There's no reason to stop the story at that point. It's just going to continue on in a new way.
You get the sequel.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's like at the end of a mystery thriller kind of movie, and you find out everything at the end. If there is a sequel, everything has continued on, right? It's just there are now new things to do, new challenges to overcome. And I think that's, you know, if we're talking the biblical sense, you know, I think that, you know, there is this, you know, 1,000 years of peace or whatever. But then what?
Well, there's Dune. So Dune has that aspect in it. It's interesting because they're doing a reboot of Dune, and we were talking about this before the show. Jason Momoa looks like he's going to get the role of Duncan Idaho, which is like fucking perfect. But it's already, I think Javier Bardem is in it. There's some other like big stars that are going to be in this thing, and it's like, Jesus, this is going to be crazy, this Dune. And then and David Lynch directed the one, like I guess it was in the 80s or whatever. We looked that up because I was like, who directed that? That's fucking great. And it's really close to, I mean, it's obviously it can't go into the depth of the book, but like it looks like what I imagined that this world looked like. And we actually talked about Dune in one of our interviews. Travis Corcoran, who's a science fiction writer. So they're doing the Dune reboot. Then did you hear that Amazon Prime is doing a Lord of the Rings series? Did you hear about this?
I heard that something was in the works. So I heard a rumor about it like a year ago.
No, they just released something like today. All it is a map of Middle Earth, and there's nothing on it, but you can kind of zoom in and stuff. But I think what they're eventually going to do is they're going to start filling that in, maybe with little trailer clips and whatnot. Supposedly, it's not. They say it's not a remake of the Peter Jackson movies. I don't understand what that means. Like, does it mean you're doing the books that he's done? There are other, like the Silmarillion or whatever.
Yeah, the Silmarillion is an amazing work, but it's as dense and difficult to read as the actual Bible. You know, it's not something that's very movie friendly. It's really more. But
if they were basing stories, right? So they said it's going to be multiple seasons.
Yeah. So I mean, if they're just telling like shorter, smaller stories around the big story,
right? Yeah,
that could totally work.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the key is that you can end it. You can end any of these books on this thing, and it's like, okay, it's over. The story's over. But it's very, very easy to just pick it back up. Mm-hmm. But with Dune, there actually is like I guess the third book, the God Emperor of Dune. That's over 3,000 years.
Wow.
Because the son of Paul Atreides, who's the hero in the first one, becomes the emperor of the universe, and he lives for 3,000 years because he's like, spoiler alert, because it's not really a spoiler, because he melds his body with the sandworm larva, and like he's able to meld his body with the sandworm larva, and then they are like giving him the spice, which the spice keeps people young anyway. That's what it's for. So he's like getting this permanent thing of spice, and then he slowly starts to turn into a sandworm. So by the end of the 3,000 years, he's like mostly worm. It's pretty gross. Yeah, it's pretty gross. He's like this sandworm with like a face popping out. So wow. Yeah, but that's Herbert must have been using there's all kinds of religious references in that. I mean, it's religious, period. That whole book, the whole story, what he's telling, it's all about the Messiah and the return of the Messiah and all of that. So that must be what he's going off of. this 3,000 years. It's the golden path, he calls it. It's a time of peace. But so this is another thing, and it's another reason why it made me think of, because I'd been thinking of Dune. Craig Wright did this thing, and he's been going off in this weird, and, of course, render unto Caesar, been thinking about Bitcoin. And he's really been going on these rants that are like anti-liberty, anti-anarchist rants.
Pro-state.
Deeper than pro-state. It's interesting. It's like something that's beyond the state, and that's why I found it so interesting. And I was like, "Ooh, this is something. There's something here." Like because I think this child porn thing, with there being child porn on the blockchain, I think it caught him out, and he was just like, okay, time to fucking full blast. Like, it's a Hail Mary. That's how I really view this. Like, no pun intended, right? Like, with this conversation, it's a Hail Mary, and he's saying like, what I built. He's just saying this over and over, like, what I built, what Bitcoin is supposed to be. Is it supposed to be like this super trackable ledger of economic activity where everything can be tracked, where every single activity that any human being does can be tracked, and that's going to make for a better society?
That's going to make for a scary-ass society.
Well, that's the golden path. That's the golden path in the God King Emperor, the God Emperor of Dune, Leto Atreides, Emperor Leto the Second. That's what he does. He basically he stops all space travel. No one can travel. Everyone lives in these little fucking boxes. He's got it. He's got these super level psychic powers, so he can like see the future. He can see everything that's going to happen. He has all the knowledge of all of his human ancestors, male and female, all the way back to the beginning of time. He can get knowledge instantly from any of them. So he's got all those generations of knowledge. So he's the wisest person, the smartest person, the most intuitive person. He can see into the future and into the past all the way across space and time. And he creates the society where there is absolute peace. And people, it's like a hell.
Yeah, because he is the ancestor simulation.
Okay, go on.
So from simulation theories, from some of our prior conversations, the point of an ancestor simulation was to actually do that. It was to compile all the knowledge of all the ancestors all the way back in order to make better decisions in the present. But if you have all of that knowledge and all of the reasons the decisions were made and all the relevant facts, you can project into the future. So, I mean, there's a couple of different possibilities. Either this person actually exists at a point in time and is the embodiment of an ancestor simulation, or perhaps it is the embodiment of the entire simulation and he's just presenting as that singular point in time, to suit his needs.
So it's almost like the people on the outside of the ancestor simulation have put an avatar inside of it. Exactly. that is the embodiment. Well, that's like the AI programming itself, right? That's the whole idea, is that auto improvement, that self improvement. So what's interesting about how Leto does this, right? And so his father, Paul Atreides, was the return of this character, Muad'Dib, who the Fremen on the planet Dune had been waiting for, this Messiah who was going to have these particular attributes. Now, the thing this is not in the movies, but it's in the book, and it's so interesting, is that the whole idea is that there's these sort of like, well, The background of Dune, that's the most important part, is when it deals with AI, is that any machine that can do calculations has been eliminated from the universe. It's not allowed. The Butlerian Jihad.
Yeah, because
your ancestors were part of that.
Yeah. My descendants learned the lesson, and they
or
were
your
like,
descendants,
"Fuck
yes.
these machines, man. We saw what happened last time. We're getting rid of all of them."
Yes, your ascendants. Your ascendants. So there are these different groups. So there's these groups called mentats. They're kind of like the human computers, and then there's the Bene Gesserit. They're kind of like these techno witches almost, right? So they've got like psychic powers. They've trained psychic powers. They've got the crazy martial arts. They can like rupture your heart with like a word and shit like that. So
wow.
So he's been trained by both. He's the son of one of the dukes, one of the top dukes in the universe, and this Bene Gesserit witch who was supposed to give birth to a daughter, because the Bene Gesserit are trying to breed a superhuman. The Kwisatz Haderach. They're trying to breed. They have a breeding program to try to breed a superhuman, because they can do that thing where they go back into the past, but they can only see their female ancestors.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they take the water of, so they basically take a psychedelic drug that's made from this worm poop, basically worm poop. That's the spice, and they take this. They take it, and then, or the water life might be something else, but they do this thing with the spice, and then they go and they have like an ayahuasca ceremony, and they go back and they do. He's pulling in a lot of shit, but so this dude Paul Atreides, who's the father of the guy who becomes the God Emperor, is this weird amalgamation. He fits all of the description of this guy who's going to return. The fucked up part about it is, that legend, the religion itself, is a plant on this planet, and it's something that the Bene Gesserit witches have done for thousands of years, so that if a Bene Gesserit who's in charge, ever gets in trouble, she just kicks in the prophecy. Oh. So the prophecy has been seeded there. Mm-hmm. So that they can use it if they ever get into trouble to take over the planet.
Wow. But honestly, there are a lot of people, thoughtful people, who say that the entire prophecy around Jesus was a plant. And you can look at multiple prophecies that have been theorized to have been artificial in origin, not artificial intelligence, but like artificially introduced into the culture.
If they aren't introduced, the question is, are they purposely introduced, or are these archetypes of the Messiah just a natural thing that some scumbags from time to time exploit?
Well, I think it depends on the original prophecy, right? So if you take a look at a prophecy and it's kind of like Nostradamus-y, and it's kind of like, oh, this great lion eats the, other beast or whatever.
Well, that's like what a Revelation is crazy. Like, it's a straight up acid trip. It's definitely a psychedelic, from front to back, mm-hmm. Like the way that it starts, the way that it comes on, he hears a loud voice behind him. Who's saying that voice? It's like, dude, this is a fucking mushroom trip.
Oh yeah.
This dude's on high doses of mushrooms, and it comes on and then it goes off in waves. I'm just surprised he was able to record and remember the shit.
I know, it was practically a lethal dose of weed.
That's what
so it's crazy. But if you look at some of the other religious texts that are not in the Christian Bible, but are in other works of other religions, some of them start off in the typical prophetic way, saying, there will be this child born to a virgin mother, blah blah blah, and then all these things happen. But then they start getting really specific, and they're like, people of, there will be these classes, and people of this class can't interact with people of this other class, and then they have to go to this city that's so far away, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, once there is a certain level of specificity, that's where, my red flags start coming up and going, oh, well, this isn't like what I would consider a natural prophecy, which occurred as a result of some, near lethal dose of weed, but that actually occurred as part of a conspiracy to have something in the future.
Well, this is the centuries long or generations long time horizon.
Yeah. And as we've discussed before, the big thinkers, the important families like the Rothschilds, et cetera, that's the timeline they think in.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's I mean, and royal families that have for whom, I guess if there's like, you're talking about like the Maslow's hierarchy sort of situation, like they're way beyond like the needs of the body.
Oh yeah.
They're way beyond the needs of the mind even. Whatever they need to stimulate the mind, to learn, to do whatever, the greatest teachers, the greatest knowledge, the greatest learning is all at their fingertips. Now you've moved into the spiritual realm, but the question becomes, if it's a question about spirit, right? And it goes to the 1,000 years of peace or the golden path or whatever, the 3,000 years. It's to UBI, to this whole Green New Deal. Like I think it. No, I really do think that it ties in. Is the idea that can you have spiritual evolution if there is no struggle in the physical or in the mental space?
Personally, I don't think so. And
that's what I think is wrong with Maslow's pyramid. I think that's wrong with his hierarchy, because he says, oh, you can't begin to like handle the spiritual until you have these other things done. And I think that's wrong.
I agree. You and I are on the same page on this, because I think, and if you look back at the writings that we all look back on, and the great stories and the epic stories that have come before, it's all the journeys happen at once. So it's not just like, oh, this great hero went through this journey and then, came out the other side stronger or faster. No, they come out as a completely new person who has grown physically, emotionally, spiritually, in every possible way. They are a new and better person. So it's all together. Like everything works in combination. So you can't just take one part out and focus on that all by. And even Schwarzenegger said this during his bodybuilding days. He's like, bodybuilding is as much a mental game as it is physical.
Oh, I think it's more a mental game than physical.
Sure, but if all you did was go to the gym and mindlessly crank out bicep curls, you're not going to end up with giant biceps. What you're going to do is you are going to limit your ability to grow your biceps. Now, if you go into the gym and you have a plan and you have the right mental attitude and you're physically, like you are mentally, there's a technique to this where you mentally contract the muscle and work through the entire range of motion. So it is a mindful exercise. And, so then you come out of it bigger, stronger, and mentally more tough at the end. So it's a combination. It's not that you can work on these things in isolation. You have to work on them together.
No, when I go into the gym now, and it's like in some ways it's an opportunity for me to like lose myself in the sort of moving meditation, because I've done it so often. It's a practice. It's the same thing for a lot of martial artists. You know what I mean? Like you go in, and if you're like in a stand-up art, like you do katas, or if you're like jiu-jitsu, you go in and you roll with somebody that's, where both of you are just staying sharp. You know what I mean? You're maintaining, you're staying sharp. You can often, it's a very nice, you can get into the zone, you can lose yourself, you can do that. But like when I was doing TV and it was, 6 weeks before the show and I was going in and training, and I was mindful when it was like, I was about my diet and my timing was perfect, and my when I went to sleep and when I woke up, and I went in, and every single rep, like my mind was in every single rep, because my goal was, I'm just going to get myself so jacked, in this period. The same number of reps. That's what's so interesting. Same number of reps, same exercises, took the same amount of time in the gym. But the simple fact that I was mindful, the difference in how my body looked after, 6 weeks of doing that, or 6 weeks of sort of just going in and maintaining, night and day.
Well, and that speaks to me to the placebo effect, because, we see situations where people are given a drug that is completely bogus, and they have real results, measurable results, and they improve. Well, why did they improve? Because they believed, their mind was part of the healing process, right? And in this case, it's exactly the same thing. So you are in tune with your body, your mind is in tune with your body, and you are creating the environment where the results that you want to happen will actually happen. You know, versus just mindlessly sitting there on a treadmill or something, watching the news. You know, it's like, ask yourself, would a real, kung fu master, or would Bruce Lee have trained this way? Probably not, right? Bruce Lee would have been focused, intense, mindful every day, every day. Every time he got in the ring with somebody, he was on point. And that's the difference between Bruce Lee's and everybody else. And that is the key. That's the real key. But it is everything coming together, right? And it's the mind, the spirit, the body, all of it working together in combination all at the same time to get those results.
The interesting part about that sort of approach to a practice is it's a very, how should I say this? You don't take a big picture mindset with it. There is no big picture. It's very, it's in the moment, each moment. Like, what do I need to be doing in this moment? And then what is the next thing I need to be doing? And it's just like, it's this very sort of one foot in front of the other, very in the moment. You have a basic framework, but that's sort of large, but it's kept very, very simple.
Oh yeah, the wax on, wax off.
Wax on, wax off. Which is why whenever I see these sort of very big picture, I guess big picture programs as versus big, like you can have a big picture vision.
Sure.
Right? So you can have this idea that like, okay, here's this sort of general idea and this general vision. And I believe that this is kind of my orientation. So it's like this direction that you're facing and this kind of net. And then you're moving forward. But individuals who are like, okay, here's the Tower of Babel. We're going to build this tower. I've got the whole tower laid out here. And here's what we're going to do. And we're going to build this tower to heaven. Crumbling, dude. Crumbling. There's just no fucking way to have some sort of a big program. That's why I'm always skeptical. If someone shows me a big program, Green New Deal, UBI, MetaNet, Craig writes MetaNet. It's like, I've never seen, has anything like that ever worked? That's the question. In the history of humanity.
Well, and not only big picture, like, Green New Deal affects everybody in the country, everybody in the world, really, but even on an individual level. Right? So I was into blacksmithing. I love blacksmithing. I was into it for probably a year and a half, real solid, going every week, taking lessons, all that kind of stuff. And, I think everybody kind of goes into blacksmithing thinking, oh, I want to make a sword or I want to make a knife. Yeah. But that's big picture, right?
Right.
So I go in and the guy's like, okay, we're going to make a point. And I'm like, okay. So I took, like a 1/2-inch square bar, heated it up, and then I pounded it into a point. And he's like, okay, it's pretty good. Do it again. And it was make a point, over and over until it was perfect. Right. And that takes a long time.
Just like throwing a punch. You're going to keep throwing punches till it's perfect.
Yeah. And even after the point where you think it's perfect, you still have improvement
you got to be able to do it in your sleep.
Yeah. And so then, after the point, then we move on to the leaf. And, that introduces some additional techniques, and, you got to have a little finesse with the hammer. And so then you make a leaf. And you're like, oh, look, I made a leaf. It's like, okay, go make 100 of them.
Right.
Oh, fuck.
Right.
So then, it's 6 weeks later when you finally have the 100th leaf, and then you're like comparing leaf number 100 to leaf number 1, and you're like, okay, now I get it. Yeah. Now I get it, because this is so good.
Right.
And that's the thing, is like, even like if you're talking Green New Deal or you're talking about just learning to use a hammer, it's the same thing. You got to look at the details, you got to really dig in. You got to focus on the details. And, the problem with something like a Green New Deal, it'll never, ever, ever work because all of the infrastructure, like when you're hammering out a leaf, the muscle memory, the hammer, the whole, the way you grip the hammer, your hand position, like all of it, like it all works together in a very geometric way to create this perfect little thing. And when you're talking about a massive, gigantic, world-changing government program, there is just not that level of thought that went into it.
Frederick Brooks in the Mythical Man Month, which is a book that not just software engineers, I think, should read, but it's one that everybody should peruse, at least the Mythical Man Month essay, and there's a couple of more essays in there that are worth it. But he says, and I think that this is so true in software engineering, build one to throw away. Mm-hmm. You build one knowing, and it's so I mean, I've got something that I'm finishing up on that board where I literally just ported something from Python to Node, and the one that I built in Python, I knew I was going to throw. I worked fucking hard on it. I knew I was going to end up throwing it away, and sure enough, I ended up throwing it away. But the one that I built, the second one, took a tenth of the time, and it was just going through and porting these functions over and everything. But you can't, if you have these broad, sweeping, big picture programs, you only get one shot. It's not build one to throw away. The thing is that it's the time frames again. It's the time frames. Like for me, I recently had a conversation with somebody, and I've been saying this a lot more lately, that for me, Bitcoin is a multi-generational project. I've come to just accept that whatever it is that I'm doing in this space, and I want to keep doing in this space. Thank you, sir. Mm-hmm. I view it as I'm doing something that if I've done my job, it'll be something that conceptually that concept will stick around, and generations from now, people will still be using some portion of it. Doesn't mean they're using the code that I wrote. Doesn't mean any of that, but it's like there are a lot of concepts, and it's like, which concepts do we keep? Which concepts do we throw away? Which concepts are valuable? Which concepts are things that people have? And there's a lot. Which are the things people have worked on? Which are the things that people have not? Which are the memes that have stuck? And so if I've done a good job, then I'm spending my time helping to evolve memes that are useful and that someone will use in the future. And if I've done a shit job, I'm spending my time on memes that are going to be throwaway memes.
Memes in the technical sense, not
yes.
not in the Icon has cheeseburger sense.
No. memes as in like the the idea version of genes.
Yes.
Right? So it's like we've got throwaway genes. We keep those alive, or genes. We for sure have some genes that no longer do anything, that used to do something. Those are for sure there.
Until they're activated by the alien code.
Right. Okay.
We have a lot of genes that scientists don't really understand the purpose for yet. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can call it junk DNA, we can call it, extra genes, whatever, but I don't know. I mean, for me, the jury's still out.
They're not junk if they kept our ancestors alive.
Sure.
Right? It may be something that we don't currently use on a day-to-day basis, that perhaps our ancestors used on a day-to-day basis, and it kept their asses alive. And Mother Nature, evolution is conservative. So it's not gonna, if it's like, yo, that shit fucking, it's not conscious like that, but something that keeps a creature alive is not going to leave out of its genome. Yeah,
and tonsils and the appendix.
Right, there you go.
Right, people were saying for 30, 40 years that they had no purpose, no use. Probably longer than that. And now we're discovering, turns out they do have a use.
Part of the whole. Yes, they're part of the whole.
There is a function there, our bad.
So
didn't mean to take them out of all those people.
It's it's evolution versus revolution. I think that right now a lot of people, I think it's because the time frames are shorter, just because we get to see technological advancement in our lifetime. And so I think that gives people the idea that, massive change can happen in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Solutions can be found in a very short period of time. But when I was doing the music thing, and you've probably heard this saying too, this common saying, it took me 10 years to be an overnight success.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
And that's really true.
Yeah.
Like every artist that I've known who seems like they came out of nowhere, they were grinding for a decade before that.
Yeah.
You just hadn't heard of them.
Yep. Playing in little bars all over.
They just hit a tipping point.
Yeah.
And then, but it was no like, all of a sudden.
No.
Right? Or the movie director. Or the fashion designer. Like, you name it. Took me 10 years to become an overnight success. And that's just a matter of, that's that diffusion of innovation curve. Right? Same with Bitcoin.
Yep.
JP Morgan comes out now with their JPM coin. Okay, we've got a blockchain. We're doing... Wow, biggest bank.
Oh, after saying that,
Jamie Dimon.
Bitcoin's nothing. It's a fad. It's gonna be dead in a couple of years.
He said, a scam.
Yeah. And now, sorry, our bad. Now we have one.
Well, they've got a blockchain, right? Because the blockchain's interesting. Bitcoin is, and it's like, man, there ain't no use for the blockchain except Bitcoin. You dumb son of a bitch. Like there's no. What the fuck? What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? There's no... It's like they're looking and they're like, when is this fucking thing? When is this thing? Well, there's first they ignore you. Then they laugh. Then they fight you. And then you win.
Yeah.
And it's like, Satoshi won.
Yep.
Satoshi won. JP Morgan wants a blockchain. But what they don't understand is you just fucked yourself. You just fucked yourself. Like, because your Bitcoin is going to keep on going. You are going to stop using your blockchain because it's inefficient. It's inefficient for your internal settlements. You may as well do an Excel spreadsheet. They're the ones in control. Like, the whole reason for having a blockchain is because you don't trust the guy on the other end. It's like, dude, you're sending money from this bank that you own to this bank. They've been 900 years, bro. Knights Templar figured that shit out. Like, you don't... you don't need a blockchain for that shit, buddy.
Well, and they don't want a blockchain for that.
No, they don't.
I mean, when you consider how modern banking works and, their fractional reserve and all that stuff, it's like, it's all funny money anyway, man. So let's not put it on a blockchain that's immutable and can't be changed at the drop of a hat. Let's just keep it on the Excel spreadsheets like we've been doing for the last 30 years. And that way, if we need to fudge a number here and there, we can still do that.
Well, I think that's what this is about, is that they've decided, okay, look, we need to at least understand this shit.
Yeah.
We need to start experimenting with it, and we need to figure out how we can do what you just said. We need to figure out how we can have a Bitcoin where we can fudge the numbers.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is we need to spin up a blockchain, and we need to see how we can finesse this motherfucker.
Yeah. And then you have Craig Wright coming along and explaining exactly how to do that.
Well, that's the plan. Well, this is what I'm saying. This is his plan. But he's going another route because he does know enough about the technology to know you can't fudge the numbers
unless you control all the mining nodes.
Unless you control all the mining, yes, that's true.
I believe is his. It's a plan, right?
It is his plan. It is.
There you go.
And it's the question though is how do you get there? And this is where I came out with that hash war video, and I'm very glad that that the people who mounted a defense were listening to me. And now I do know for sure. I mean, I knew at the time, and pretty quickly, and I wasn't talking about it, but private communications from certain individuals that the belligerents on the other side were very much listening to what I had to say about that, and that they reached out to me personally and said that things that I had said had made a difference in their behavior, and that's good. And just in terms of making them take the threat more seriously. Let's just put it like that, right? Making them see, oh, there's an existential threat here. This is not like, this dude's not a joker.
Yeah.
And I think he's a con man, but I don't think he's a joker.
Right.
He's a dangerously so. Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox.
Desert Fox.
Yeah, he had a
greatest field marshal of all time.
Greatest field marshal of all time. He had a saying that he said there are 4 types of men. There are lazy or ambitious, stupid or intelligent. He said, when men come to me, if they are lazy and dumb, I put them to work. If they're dumb and ambitious, I get rid of them immediately. If they're lazy and dumb, I put them to work digging ditches. If they're smart and ambitious, I put them on my staff. And if they're lazy and intelligent, smart and lazy, I make them my generals.
Nice.
Well, because they'll find necessity is the mother of invention. I need 8 hours of sleep. You know what I mean?
And Henry Ford had the same kind of thing, where he was looking for people. He would actually seek out the lazy people because they would figure out how to get work done without them personally having to do it.
Exactly.
So it was all about innovation. It was like, how can we automate this stuff?
Exactly.
And that's who he would seek out to do that. I was going to ask, though, how are the digs? Because, I mean, you've been living rent-free in Craig's Head for a while, and I'm just wondering if it's a nice place. I mean, does it have a nice view?
I think that he and I are natural nemesis. We are absolutely natural. It should be he and Roger Ver, but Roger is he's too sweet of a guy. He's not naturally confrontational. But Craig and I are a natural nemesis, I think.
Yep.
Because I think that we are. Well, he's like a Nick Hawk, right? Mm-hmm. We're naturally. I think we're fundamentally cut from the same cloth in terms of what we're passionate about. In terms of being passionate about learning, educating ourselves. He obviously has an interest in spirituality. I mean, he got a doctorate in theology. He was a pastor for a while, right? But I think it's very right-hand path, left-hand path. Mm-hmm. It's like, are you after this for an external reason, or are you after this for an internal reason? Like, what?
Yeah. Are you learning to play guitar because you love guitar, or because you want to get chicks?
This is it, right? Yeah. So in that way, we're sort of polar opposites of each other, right? We're two sides of the same coin, which make us natural nemeses of each other, right? So, and I do not think Craig is a statist. I actually do not believe that. I do not think that he is a lover of government. He has this fetish for, let me say it correctly, law. Law. That's law. He has a fetish for law, not for justice. I have a fetish for justice. Right? He has a fetish for law. Mm-hmm. But I think that some of that comes from desire for structure. Right? That like this desire for being able to have something, and probably that's a reason for him to have been attracted to Bitcoin as well. Like like a systems oriented thinker. We're like that anyway, you and I. I think, well, all software engineers and all people who are at least partially on the spectrum, right? It's all about like systems oriented thinking.
Yeah, you have to be.
And, you know, he has also this strong attachment to like this whole thing about the protocol is set in stone, he's anti-change, which tells me he's probably like heavily on the spectrum. Because that's something about autistic individuals is that change really like fucking freaks them out. Like, don't change shit. You know what I mean? Yep. I know this thing. I've learned this thing. I've learned it to a T, and now you're telling me you're going to change it. That's really what I see from him. And that's I don't know if you want to call it a disorder, but it's a temperamental thing. And the problem is, like, you have to have change.
Yeah.
You don't want to have change willy-nilly, but there has to be change. There has to be evolution, because you yourself participating in the world change the world.
Yeah, and the world changes you.
And, well, if it either changes you or it kills you.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't change based on the world changing, you are dead. Learn to code.
Yeah, learn to code.
Learn to code. That's what that meme is saying. That meme is saying the world just changed on your ass. Are you going to change or are you going to starve?
You know, it's funny, when we first talked about that a couple of weeks ago, my initial thought, before I had seen any of the posts, before I had seen anything about the meme, my very first thought was, ooh, so we're going to teach people how to manipulate the NPCs. This is fantastic. So we're actually learning to code the NPC brain. And, you know, to me, like, okay, sure, it's funny to tell journalists to learn to code. That's great. Haha. But if we could actually directly manipulate the NPC brain, that's where the real power is.
It's interesting you say that because, as so many things you say are interesting when you say it. No, well, in my sort of pickup artist wingman used to call the game of pickup panty hacking.
Oh yeah,
he's not a programmer, CGI guy, but you know he wrote scripts for you know the things that he was doing, so he knew how to code as well. But yeah, he called it panty hacking, and I was like, I think that's accurate.
Totally.
I think that's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah.
This is programming. Yeah. And then you go in and you're like, okay, run this. Nope, there's a bug. Okay, go back. Run this. It's like unit testing.
Yeah.
Like you're going in and it's like, I'm going to get this fucking test to pass. And you know when you can throw any woman in the situation and the test passes, boom. So I was like, okay, I think this is right.
Yeah.
Panty hacking.
Yep.
But again, it is about, and it's like if you look at the Bitcoin SV GitHub, which it's just a fork of Bitcoin ABC. There's no changes. Like they have fetishized this idea of whatever you do, you can't change the software. Like you can fix a bug, but how many fucking bugs are there in Bitcoin really at this point? Like, let's be real. How many bugs are there in Bitcoin? There's no bugs. There's no fucking bugs in Bitcoin. I mean, every once in a while, right? Somebody runs across like some crazy thing where they're like, "Oh my God, if somebody would have seen that, we'd all be fucked." Okay, but but that's like every 4 years there'll be one of those.
Yep.
And it's like it's somebody, but the only way those get found is because somebody was working on some improvement to something, and they run across something, and they're like, "Wow, what the fuck is this?" But what you got to realize is nobody's looking at that code.
No.
The number of people, first off, the number of people who can even look at the code is in the world is people don't understand how small that is.
Yeah.
Like it's really small. Second, the number of people who can actually look at the code who don't have a previous engagement. You feel me? Like, there's a lot of code in this world for people who can read that code to be looking at.
Yeah.
And a lot of code that's broken for them to be looking at, and they're getting paid a lot of money to look at that, and then they don't want to go home and look at Bitcoin fucking code, or maybe they don't give a shit about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is something that has, many times in my life when I've been doing things and had to really stop. And there have been people in my life who have stopped me and said, like, no, you have to realize, like, if you weren't the person doing this, no one else on earth would be doing this right now. Like this, but I mean, you know this with the code that you've looked at too. I'm sure that you've looked through code where you realized, oh shit, no one else has looked through this code since the person who wrote it.
Yeah, Dave Cutler, back in the early 90s. That was one of the cool things about looking through some of that code, was seeing the code comments from Dave Cutler himself. So Dave Cutler, the only person who's actually created 3 commercially viable operating systems.
Shit.
Dude's just a phenomenon. And, he wrote a big part of the kernel of the original Windows NT. And before that, it was OS2 Warp. It was the IBM OS2.
Yeah.
And before that was like VMX or something. I mean, it was just like, the guy has serious street cred when it comes to this stuff. And it was, it's like, wow, okay, so that's how you handle an interrupt. It will always be how you handle an interrupt.
Right, from here on out.
Yeah, like there is no other way to handle an interrupt. Mm-hmm. So, that there's nothing wrong with that code. It's
right.
Oh, the computer blue screens when it does this, blah blah blah, and then you go and you look at the interrupt handler and you figure out where it goes and blah blah blah. There's going to be some code flaw way further down the road.
Right.
But when you look at the interrupt handling and the interrupt table, there's nothing wrong with that. It's pristine, and it has been, since he wrote it, and it's because it was written by someone who had already done this 1,000 times.
Right. This was old hat.
Yeah. And he's like, I already wrote these other operating systems. He's like, if you want to do it for real, here's how you do it.
But but at the time he was writing that, how many human beings on the planet had the capability to do that?
One.
This one. This is what I'm getting at. This is what I'm saying, is that Bitcoin is at a point where if you really wanted to say, you know what, no more, we're not doing anything more to this, here's where it's at. But you know what? Every sort of operating system is, if you really want to say it, is always at that point. Right? It's like, these are the things we can do. These are any piece of software that's working is at that point. If you have a track home, this happens early. But if you have a non-cookie cutter home, as it starts to get old, there starts to be little things here and there, a door, you know what I mean, that you got to close it just this way, or a cabinet that does just this thing. And you can definitely go in and switch out the cabinet, switch out this door, whatever, or just realize no, this is the way this door has to close.
Yeah.
And software is the same way. That you could just be like, well, no, it's just kind of, if you do that, this happens, so you don't do that, so you do it in this way, and this is the way that you do it. And you can make improvements to that, just like switching out the door, or you can just make the decision that set in stone, no changes. We will never change this house. This is the way that this house was built. Mm-hmm. If you change out that door, that's going to ruin the house completely. If you add in, this, if the windows if they don't open anymore, and you've got the tempered glass, and they do like this, then you're going to ruin the whole entire house. And that's really what I see.
So it's interesting that you use the house analogy, because if you look at a lot of historical societies, right, they have a historical registry. They put various houses on that historical registry, and they're supposed to be maintained in their original form. Now, there will be occasions when there is damage, potentially, storm damage, whatever, and then they have to have craftsmen come in and use the techniques that were common in the day.
This is what I'm saying.
And so what we're going to have in the code world is we're going to have people who are capable of using the techniques of the day to fix the code, restore the code, maintain the code.
Well, this is what Craig wants, actually. Yeah. This is what he wants. Because his whole mantra is, so this is why it's interesting to see. I don't think that we have seen this in the world of software as of yet, because there hasn't been. Where have I seen it? I've seen it as a DJ, right? With the guys who stuck with vinyl, right? Okay. So
which is making a huge comeback, by the way.
I mean, it never left. I was thinking about that the other day, that it's like, I mean, when did vinyl start becoming like a commercial thing? Phonograph records, I mean, are we talking, 20s, 1920s, 19-teens maybe? And I was still having to buy vinyl to play like the latest shit in at least as late as, I mean, where I would buy vinyl, there were record stores selling vinyl on Melrose. I mean, we're talking 2000. When did the last records? I mean, there still are some, but I mean, for DJs, when did DJs really go to the digital? I would say 2002 probably, because I remember going to a DMC, the DJ mixing competition, in 2001 probably, with some other DJ friends of mine at what spot was that? One of the big clubs. It's called something different now. It's called Avalon now. I forget what it was called at the time. Up in the balcony, and this dude comes out and he's showing off. He's demoing Final Scratch, which then like went over to Serato. I think Final Scratch was maybe its own company, maybe Stanton. I don't know. But I remember booing this dude and heckling him. We all heckled him, and now we all use Serato and play CDs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like, okay, or Pioneer record box.
Yeah.
But so you figure at least let's say 1922 to 2000.
Okay.
80 years. Yeah. 80 years of a form factor for music where it was viable. Mm-hmm. Viable vinyl, pressing vinyl, having a vinyl record label, that's viable. 80 years.
And then it took a break for 15 years, and now it's back.
And it's back. And people are like, oh, vinyl, yeah. So this is what Craig Wright has actually introduced, this sort of, what do you call it? Nostalgia, fundamentalism, like I don't know what that is called, but he has introduced this to the software world, because this has not been something that software engineers have found attractive for the most part.
But I think it's because in large part a lot of the software has always been throwaway. A lot of the software has always been... You
look at it as that. You look at it as like, oh yeah, there's going to be a next version. Okay, when are we doing the next version, guys? Because here's the whiteboard full of shit that's wrong.
Yeah. We're going to fix it in the mix. I mean...
Exactly. Yes. No, exactly. Yeah. No pun intended. Or pun intended. Whatever.
But it's just like, everybody looks at software as this, constantly changing thing. But when you go back and you look at some of that code that was written originally by Dave Cutler, he intended that it would never change. Like, this is the way... Scientifically, this is the only way to do this.
Right.
Because we're actually dealing with electric signals from the motherboard. This is how it's done, period.
Now, this is true in some aspects of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
This is absolutely true. I think that the fundamental the fundamental way that that the blockchain is laid out is, I think that's set in stone. I don't think that there's another way to do it, because proof of work is not a software thing. Proof of work is an economics thing, which means proof of work is a psychological thing.
Yes.
And that's why I say Bitcoin was discovered. That it's going to take a very, just like the Knights Templar discovered what they discovered. Sure. Right? And like that lasted for 1,000 years. Yeah. 900 years. Yep. And it's still going, and it's got a few hundred more years in it. What I find interesting about what Craig brings to the table is by bringing that sort of idea of, by bringing the set in stone idea, he's going to attract the people from that Rothschildian sort of, from that, who see this, because once it was new with the Knights Templar. It was brand new. Sure. Or maybe it wasn't. We don't know. Well, maybe they discovered it. We don't know.
So what they did, for the listeners that may not be aware, the Knights Templar essentially created modern banking. That's because right. They provided safe passage for religious pilgrims along, to the Holy Land. And that was a road that was fraught with danger. There were bandits, there were, bad people all along the way. So what they did was they said, okay, come to our commandery. You can deposit all of your wealth. Mm-hmm. Like literally people would carry around gold coins. I mean, they would be loaded down with their personal treasures. And the Knights Templar would say, okay, deposit this with us. We will issue you a signed and sealed check. And then you take that to the commandery in the Holy Land, your destination.
The other branch.
Yeah. And you can withdraw it all.
Yes.
And sure enough, it worked perfectly. They had a tremendous reputation and trust and all that sort of thing.
But if you just happen to die along the way and your check got lost, well,
yeah, you don't have a succession plan or somebody to make claim on the. But I don't think they did it in an underhanded kind of way.
Oh no, I don't think at all. I think that's just the nature of the beast.
Nature of the beast. It was just dangerous.
Yeah,
things
absolutely.
were dangerous. We live in a very, very safe world now. It's crazy. So I think there is a fundamentalist aspect to what it is that you're talking about, because there are factions, if we call them factions, in the world. It's very appealing to have things that are written in stone, things that are ancient.
Yes, exactly.
And unchanging, right? It's the reason the Ten Commandments were carved in stone, because literally carved in stone meant unchanging, never ending. It'll be this way forever. And that paradigm is extremely attractive to people when they are thinking in 500 or 1,000 year increments. And how easy is it for someone who thinks in terms of a 500 year, 1,000 year epoch? How easy is it for them to manipulate those who think in 10-year increments?
Oh, it's so easy.
Yeah. So, that's the situation we live in. That's the world today, is that we have people who are thinking long-term and exploiting those who think short-term.
Well, this is why I say that I had to switch my mind state to Bitcoin is a multi-generational project. I'm going to finish that statement, which is something that has been lacking from the general narrative around cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Especially, I've seen this especially, as of late, talking to talking to people who are investors entering into the space, right? So there are lots of VCs slowly entering the space. Clearly, institutions are trying to enter into the space. They, VCs are looking at this as a technology play. It's a lot of tech VCs. You've got people coming in from, the typical places, Silicon Valley, Austin, New York, some from Europe as well, China. And they're looking at it as a tech play, and they're seeing it in the time frames of Silicon Valley timeframes, right? Which is decades. And this is not decades. Like this is centuries.
Yeah.
This is centuries. And it's weird to be at the very beginning of this thing and to see these people thinking in terms of like quarters, like what's going to happen next quarter, what's going to happen next quarter, what's going to happen next quarter. And it's like, bruh, this is money.
Yeah. Just to give you a little bit of context, right? I just looked something up real quick because I had a hunch. So we think of things, okay, so let's start with like the public, right? The NPC public. Welcome to NPC Radio, where we talk, about the same things all the time to the same people. We tell you what you want to hear. Okay, so if you think about the NPC public, they're thinking in time frames of, few years? Mm-hmm. Not very long.
Dude, a few years?
Yeah, maybe a few years.
A few fucking weeks,
more like a few weeks, yeah. Especially the younger crowd.
Oh my God, dude! Yeah. years. A year is for fucking forever to the average person.
I have been too generous. You're absolutely correct. It is weeks, maybe weeks. But then you have the people that have a little bit longer term view, mm-hmm. right? And so then you start thinking about, what about these old companies like Microsoft or IBM?
Absolutely.
Oh God, these guys are ancient.
Yeah, people don't actually understand how old IBM is. IBM is pre-World War II. IBM is pre-Turing machine. People need to understand that.
Yeah. Now, let's think in terms of Lloyd's of London.
Right, exactly.
How old are they?
How old are they? I don't know.
They were founded in 1633.
Jesus Christ.
Lloyd's of London, a current insurance company.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could literally go buy an insurance, go to their website. You can go to a website of a company that was founded in 1633.
They'll insure. Lloyd's of London will insure just about anything.
Why not?
Yeah.
They don't give a fuck.
Well, the thing is they know how to do it.
Yeah.
Like you can't bring, it's like, you think you're going to bring something to us that we haven't seen before?
That was founded in 1633, bitch.
We've seen all this shit. You think you're about to bring to a 400 and some odd year old company some shit that we haven't seen? Motherfucker, we got you.
That's right.
You want to insure your legs? Nick Hawk insured his dick.
There you go.
He initially tried to go to Lloyd's of London. I think he ended up going to it ended up being like Lloyd of Simi Valley. Like it was. I'm not even joking. He really did do it. He really did find somebody to do it. But that's yeah. The oldest companies are in Japan.
Yeah.
They are there are 1,000-year-old companies that have been in continuous operation in Japan. Most of them are alcohol creators. But think about this, cognac, right? You've got like Louis the 13th, 75-year age. Like you've got Black Pearl, 75-year age.
Yeah.
Cognac.
I'm going to put this in a barrel and wait 75 years.
No, you're not, because you're not going to take it out the barrel.
Right.
You're just going to take care of a barrel that no one will ever taste what's inside in your lifetime. And probably, likely, your father put that shit in the barrel, mm-hmm. and you know that you will never see it come out. It's going to be your son or daughter who's going to be in charge, or you'll be so fucking old that you will have given the business over to them and they'll be the one who has to handle it.
Yep.
That's a whole other time frame.
Yeah.
That you're going to walk by this bottle, this barrel, your entire fucking life. From a kid, you saw this barrel sitting up there knowing I'm going to take care of that barrel. I'm never going to see what comes out of that barrel. I'm just going to take care of that shit
mm-hmm.
to give it to my child so that they can do that shit, and that is just continuing to happen. So in other words, there are going to be some barrels that I am going to pull out and that I am going to sell that were 2 generations before me, the person who put it in.
Yep.
That maybe you look at a signature or a mark on there and you realize that was fucking grandpa.
Yeah.
You pull this shit out and you taste it for the first time in 75 years that this has been exposed to the elements, and you taste it and it's glorious, and you think about your fucking grandpa. That's crazy, man.
It's crazy, and it's only 75 years.
That's only 75 years. Exactly.
Think about that church in Ethiopia where they say that they have the Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of the Covenant, yep.
And it has been guarded for 1,000 years.
That's right.
Nonstop, and nobody has seen it. Like
well, you can't, because the high priest who sees it goes blind and then he dies.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but the job keeps getting filled. I mean, people are signing up for this shit.
I don't think they're.
Oh, you're telling me they're not signing up? I'm thinking they're signing up for this
supposedly, it's kind of like being a kamikaze in that little group,
which was a great honor.
Yes, it's a super high honor, and people do take the job. But I did see one interview, at least it was several years ago. These guys don't live very long because there's something radioactive that they're guarding. Something radioactive. They all go blind. And then they all get cancer and they all die. So it's a suicide mission. Yeah. To guard this Ark of the Covenant, which is super interesting. Mm-hmm. And we're working on weirdly enough, and when I heard this, I was like, oh, that's interesting. But like RVC is kind of setting something up, looks like, with Ethiopia, where Cointext might be doing something. They've got a new reformist government there. They just came out of a dictatorship. This dude's super interesting. He's kind of like he's like a messiah to them. Ethiopia has had a messiah, Haile Selassie. He came in. He was a huge reformer. He obviously became the Jesus of the Rastafarians, right? He was the sort of the god of the Rastafarians when Haile Selassie showed up to. He was an emperor. When he showed up to Jamaica, it was like God on earth was walking, you know what I mean? It's so
wow.
This new guy, he's got a 50% female cabinet.
Wow.
Including the minister of defense is a female right now in Ethiopia. He's ended the wars with Eritrea and all of that. He's trying to bring the country around. They've only got one telco. They've only got one bank. So it's looking like there could be some interesting things possible. I mean, they're in the Horn of Africa, East Africa. They know about M-Pesa. They don't have M-Pesa, which is SMS banking in Kenya and 10 other countries in Africa. They don't have it. Possibly Cointext may find a way in there.
That would be awesome.
Our main investor is in direct contact with sort of the government where it's happening. That would be super interesting. But when he said that, I was like, oh shit. Because going back to Genesis, as I said, I did this little critique. I do think the Garden of Eden was probably in Ethiopia. I think that the Moses story probably takes place on the Nile. It's probably about the flooding of the Nile. There's we've talked about Nabta before. Some of that. I think there's some things going because the source of the Nile is Lake Tana in Ethiopia. It rains there in the highlands of Ethiopia, and then the Nile goes down and it floods. There's a whole timing thing. So, and then, they have this whole thing about this whole weird Judaism connection, right? Mm-hmm. There's this whole weird Judaism connection in Ethiopia where you're like, what the fuck? What is this all about? But the Jews came out of Egypt. Yep. If you look at the Nile River flows from Lake Tana, which is basically where this church is, in the highlands of Ethiopia. It flows from there out to the sea. So it's like, there's this whole, there's a weird place. You go down into what's now Sudan. There's a weird place where the Egyptians thought their gods came from. Yeah. And it's not that far from Ethiopia.
Yeah. I mean, there is the the whole lost tribe theory. It's incredible. And we should
the Ethiopian Jews. Yeah. That's a weird one. Yeah. That's a weird one, dude. Yep. The Queen of Sheba, because that's Ethiopia. Sheba is Ethiopia. There's some very weird shit in that region.
Yep. So when they claim to have the actual Ark of the Covenant, there's some legitimacy.
There is. There's some thought that the Ark was actually moved there.
Yep.
That it was actually moved to that region.
Yeah, after it left Solomon's temple, people lost track of it. It's like we have no idea where it went. And
no, but there is some lineage that they can draw. There were armies that were coming up there to help. Which is weird. Like there were these armies coming up there to help Israel. Like you had the Queen of Sheba, right? So you had this whole like weird alliance and all of this. They could have it.
They could. Which would explain an awful lot, because I would imagine a communicator that talks directly to God would be a bit radioactive. I'm just saying. I'm assuming.
or that the talking to God is a result of this some sort of strange radioactive material that can like throw you into some sort of a weird psychedelic thing and turn you into the fucking God Emperor of Dune.
Yeah, I mean, and you know the stories about you take the Ark of the Covenant out before your army and you'll never be defeated, and you know, and rays and lightning coming out of it and all that kind of stuff. It was definitely not of this earth. For sure. Now, whether it was a holy relic or a piece of alien technology, I have no idea. But
or a meteorite or something from Omaru or whatever that thing that flew through the solar system recently was.
The alien probe.
The alien probe.
That runs on a light sail. And,
the light sail.
Weirdly sped up on its way out.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, that's so weird that legit scientists at legit universities are going,
Yeah, that's
You know, and the thing is, like, conspiracy theorists are the first ones to jump to alien probe. You know, and I'm just like, okay, could be alien, might not be alien, but it's definitely weird.
Why not Earth? Why not crypto-terrestrials? Why didn't we put that motherfucker there? I mean, we launch. We've got the Voyager out there. We've got all kind of crazy shit out there. Who's to say human or a progenitor of human beings, the crypto-terrestrials? Who's to say they didn't put that motherfucker out there and it's just coming back? You know, it like swoops out and then it comes back and then it swoops out and then it comes back. We just caught it on this inbound. Yep. Which is interesting. It makes me think. It makes me think about this whole like 12th planet theory, Nibiru, all of this. What if we just got it wrong? What if it's really just all about a probe coming in? You know,
could be.
What if the timing would be close? It would be close. I mean, there's no telling that the calendar is probably wrong.
Oh, it's changed so many times, it's ridiculous.
So many times, right? So it's like, yeah, we probably got the fucking calendar wrong. I mean, maybe it is.
Could be. And the thing is, like, Tesla actually detected signals from space before any satellites had ever been launched. So where were those signals coming from? And, you know, I mean, there's the theory that it could have just been cosmic rays that he was picking up. But he actually said that he detected intelligible communication. Not like English speaking, you know, but this is from the mind of Tesla, right? So if Tesla is going to recognize a pattern in something,
right,
that's what he's looking for. And he's like, wow, I'm getting these signals from space. They're following a pattern. What the hell is it? He has no idea.
Tesla is somebody where I feel like he had, this is where I talk about, so this is the difference between vision and program. Tesla was a visionary.
Oh, absolutely.
But he was very step by step in the program. To where he was like, okay, I've got a vision, but like I'm going to create a device now. Well, like here's a device.
The literal vision. The literal visions would come to him, and he would see a completed mechanism in his mind before he
like Da Vinci.
Yeah, it was exactly like he would see the thing working and in the insides how it would work, and then he would create it.
I think that's correct. Actually, I think that's how it happens. I just don't think that most people have the. So he had like the depth, you know, and that's clearly what Leonardo da Vinci had, the depth. I think anyone who's creative has that happen, but they don't have the depth, right? So they're like they can see the outside maybe. Maybe they could go in and they could see somebody operating it, but he could like go into the components the individual screws, gears, whatever, the wiring, whatever. He could go into that. I think most people don't have the ability to see into that depth.
Well, and he had an understanding of electricity far beyond anyone at the time, certainly, and I would say beyond people today. He built, a resonator. It's like, who would ever envision that this resonant generator would actually work? But he did it in his brain. It came to him, it just like everything else did. It just came as a completed thing in his mind. And then he just put it together. It's kind of like Mozart, the way he composed music.
There you go.
Mozart would say, the completed work is already in my head. All I'm doing is writing it down. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
I think I do think that's how it actually happens. I think it's how it happens whether we are conscious of it or not. I don't think that creativity, I don't think that we how can I say this? This is something that people do not like when I say, but I do think that we can only manifest those things that already exist.
Yes, but they have to, whether they exist in our mind or in reality.
But see, I don't think I am in line with Terence McKenna that I believe, and maybe it's not Terence McKenna, maybe it's even more Rupert Sheldrake, but I think that our minds are a lot less formulative and a lot more receptive. Mm-hmm. So I think that they're much more like receivers that are receiving a message from out of consciousness, and within that consciousness, everything, because there's no time and space. So within that consciousness, everything has already been built.
Sure.
Right? So it's like everything's already been built. We're probably receiving a whole bunch of shit that is like way into the future. And then we're just like, our mind just like filters that, right? Because it's like that doesn't even relate to this. That becomes a fucking movie or a science fiction novel.
Yeah.
Right? That's what that is. That's a movie or science fiction novel. And that's like everything that has been built and could be built. And then things that have already been built in the past. And then we think, oh, that's just the past. Mm-hmm. That's history. That's whatever. Done. You're receiving this. These are thoughts that you're receiving from somewhere. Then you get something that's like pretty close. Mm-hmm. And there's certain individuals, creative individuals on the planet who want to manifest that sort of next step. And they receive something and they're like, oh. So I think that it's like ex post facto, where we sort of, I think we think of the creative process as we take in all of the things around us, and then we somehow sort of like imagine what the next step is. Mm-hmm. I don't think it happens like that. I don't think it happens like that at all. I think we're receivers that are constantly receiving shit, and that we've taken in everything, and then like we go to sleep and we dream or we daydream or whatever, and one of these things, one of these communications hits us, and then we're like, oh, it's the apple falling and hitting Newton, right? It's this. Yeah, that's a metaphor. Yeah. That's a metaphor. But I don't think that thing is coming from inside the person. Mm-hmm. I think that thing is coming from a dimension that we are a receiver for.
Or it would explain perfectly why we live in a simulation.
Yes. Well, I don't think why the two are not mutually exclusive.
Well, so if we truly do live in a simulation and we are restricted to just viewing our point in time, the entire simulation exists, past, present, future, the entire thing, right? So if we're capable of receiving the impressions from the future state of the simulation, then that makes perfect sense to me. Because you can already envision whatever the future thing is. So when you say that, Bitcoin was discovered, absolutely correct. Because
yes, this is why I say Bitcoin is discovered. This is exactly why I say it.
Yeah, because someone, or something, actually just conceived it from a future state. It's like they saw the end result at some point in the future, and they're like, "Oh, that's what we need to do." Done.
But this is not. I do believe that invention exists. But I believe that invention is, as they say, the mother of necessity. Like, I believe that invention is sort of the outcome of the utility function that we have. So it's like, I'm sitting here, there's water here, I need to figure out a way for this water to get to my mouth. Like, okay, so I go about inventing something. But the things that we're talking about, Bitcoin, the things that Tesla did, things with Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah.
Creative things. We were talking about Picasso before the show. Creative things that are like, they're the things you need, but you didn't know you needed them.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, revolutionary versus evolutionary.
Right, exactly.
The things that are completely unique and innovative versus the things that are iterative.
Iterative, yes, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, cool, this wine bottle's pretty awesome, but I bet I can...
Is there any more wine in that bottle? Oh.
But I bet I can...
Give me a little bit. Little. You don't need to...
Come up with
how much is in there? Well, don't give me the whole thing. Take a little bit for yourself.
So... There you go. But, it's like you look at something like a wine bottle, a wine glass, bottle of water, and you're like, I could improve on that a little bit.
Right.
But, what about the person who, invented a brand new thing?
What about the person who invented glass?
Right.
You didn't invent glass, by the way. You discovered it.
Nature invented glass.
You discovered...
by superheating sand. But people...
Yeah, but who superheated sand? Like, that's the whole thing. Like, how did sand even get superheated in the first place?
Volcanoes, lightning, UFO crashes. There are instances of natural glass that did occur. But then having like a person figure out like, oh, I can actually create this.
Dude, how about glass blowing? That's discovered.
Yeah.
Even blacksmithing. I believe that's discovered. And really, truly, a blacksmith in the sort of traditional sense is a spiritual figure.
Sure.
Is equivalent to a priest, really, a blacksmith.
Well, because they're creating the tools that protect life. I mean, you look back at the blacksmiths, and they weren't just the farriers that were creating horseshoes. I mean, they were looking at, you're looking at swords, you're looking at armor, you're looking at, the daily things that you use.
Well, and they were the first mechanics of cars, by the way. If your car broke down in the very early days, you went to the blacksmith.
Yeah, it was the only way to get spare parts.
Yeah, he would make it.
And when you're looking at something that is completely new in the world, and there haven't been that many true innovators, that many entities on the planet who have genuinely produced something that was such a departure from what had been before.
Very few.
Very, very few. Da Vinci was one of them, for sure. And he was prolific. I mean, he produced a ton of stuff. Mm-hmm. He invented the parachute. He invented the
helicopter.
Tank, the helicopter. It's like, who would have thought of making a helicopter? Nobody, And he envisioned these things. Now, was he receiving that as a signal from the future?
I'd
he
say
was
yes.
Interpreting it?
No, I don't say future, because there is no... In the dimension from which these things are communicated, there is no past, present, future.
It's just the database.
Independent of time. Exactly.
So Edgar Cayce referred to that as the collective unconscious.
The Akashic records.
Yes, the Akashic records, where it was just this vast database
yes, exactly.
with all the knowledge that could ever possibly be.
Exactly.
And you could tap into that.
Yes.
And it's really, I hope I have the opportunity to tap into that someday.
It's just drugs, dude. But even then, I don't like. I've definitely had. I've had moments, flashes. This is why I say I think we're all sort of bombarded by this in the same way that, and I think this is a good analogy. Like we could stick a radio right here.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And turn the dial, all of the things that we're hearing, all of the signal is in the room with us right now.
Yeah, but we're just unaware.
All of it. We're unaware. And there's signal that the fucking that thing over there, the router.
Yeah.
There's data signals flying. So much data signals flying around, right?
Yeah.
The conspiracy theorists are like, 5G is going to blow your brain up. And it's like, actually, no, it's not, because your brain's not fucking tuned into that shit.
Right.
It's not. Like, these signals have, every single one of them have existed around us since the beginning of time.
Sure.
The signal that is the wave that is currently carrying the signal to my phone has been in this room, in this location in space and time, which is not, I'm not even saying the location in space and time with this Earth, because we're fucking moving fast, so this is changing. But it has been in this location since the beginning of time.
Sure. Cosmic microwave background.
Yeah.
Microwaves.
Yeah.
You know, it's not new.
And the thing is, we don't know what the fuck that is, by the way. just to be real, like, there are some people who are going to be like, no, microwave, it's this 100 megahertz and blah. Motherfucker, you don't know what the fuck that is. Nobody has ever known what the fuck this shit is. Nobody knows what the fuck that. You don't. Marconi did not know how the fuck a radio works.
No, because Tesla invented it. Marconi stole it.
Even Tesla.
Marconi was the Craig Wright of radio.
Everybody stole from Tesla.
Oh yeah,
everybody
including
stole
the
from
government.
Tesla. And the thing about Tesla was, you look at his writing, the things that he spoke about. For him, the shit was spiritual.
Yeah.
It was like he understood the esoteric. Like, this was an esoteric pursuit for him. Like, he was tapping into some other thing.
He never lost perspective. He never lost the perspective that what he was doing was magical. Mm-hmm. There was magic.
The magic.
In this.
Yeah, he never. That's the. And I mean, this is something we've talked about. You go back to the alchemical. I think it's to say it's magic. All of this is magic. Is to actually be humble.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually humility. Is to say. You could say, look, you're a software developer, and it's like, I know how this piece of software works. I know how this works. You might even be like, assembly? No problem. I got that under control. Oh, hardware? I could, you know what I mean? No problem. I get my own processor together. If I needed to do this, I could take it all the way back to a Turing machine, and it's like, but electricity, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, let's just keep taking this shit back.
Magnets. How the fuck do they work?
Yeah, because we're going to reach a point where you can't fucking explain this shit.
Yeah.
So you may as well just start now.
Yeah.
Just start now. Be humble. Be humble and be like, okay, yes, this is some fucking mysterious magical shit.
Yeah. Let's start with electromagnetic wave.
Yeah.
Can somebody
what
please
is that?
Explain? Because wave, the wave is what it does.
Right.
Not what it is.
Yeah, what is it? You don't know what the fuck
What
that
is it?
What's the fucking color?
Yeah.
What's a color?
What's color?
Explain that shit to me.
Yeah.
Tell me right now.
It's like, bring it. Let's do this. Let's talk about this
Bring
stuff.
it. Tell me what a fucking color is. No, don't describe it in some way outside of it. Like, tell me what it is in the thing itself.
Yeah. Don't tell me what it does.
Don't tell me what it does.
You know,
Tell
just
me
tell
what
me
it
what
is.
it is. Yeah.
You can't.
Right.
You can't. And I think, and that's the humility, and that's the mystery, and that's walking through the whole thing. And that's the reason why the vision works, the program doesn't. The program doesn't work because you don't know how this shit works.
Yeah, and that's why we have quantum physics, because everybody is trying to figure out what things are, and they're taking guesses, but scientists, especially like the quantum mechanics field, it's become all like mathematics. Mm-hmm. There's not much science left in it, you know, and it's because People are too busy describing. Well, I didn't intend that to be that funny, but that's okay. So,
God damn, you're speaking the truth. You're speaking the truth.
well, people have been so busy describing what they're seeing,
Right.
and not describing what's actually underlying it all.
Well, because you can't.
Because you can't. And so they come up with these super complex models that are super accurate, and they're like, we know exactly what's going on because we can predict to the 0.00001 what's going to happen, but you can't tell us why.
Well, this is the materialist view. No, it's a fetish. Mm-hmm. It's a materialist fetish, is what it is,
and it becomes a form of bullying.
Oh, it has to.
Yeah.
Because you have the strong cognitive dissonance, because underneath it all, if you keep pressing, you reach a point where it's like, yeah, but what the fuck is that? Like, what is that?
And they know they don't have the answer. And
they don't. So this is the reason why, to bring it full circle here, this is the reason why seeing these sorts of patterns in these ancient thinkers who, by the way, the idea that people would think that like the people who wrote the books in the Bible were stupid or something, especially the Old Testament, you're tripping. Like, these are people who are coming from, if you want to go with Moses was an Egyptian priest, these are people who are coming from thousands of years of mathematics too. Like, of all of this shit, like thousands of years. And what they settled upon, thousands of years, not hundreds.
Yeah, you want
not
to talk
a fucking 100.
You want to talk about long-term thinking? Build a fucking pyramid.
Build a pyramid. Start building it.
Yeah.
Just try that. Start.
Yeah.
So these are people who they eventually settled upon. You have to think that they probably hit a materialist period at some point. A couple hundred years in, we could figure this shit out. We could figure it out. And they eventually settled on, no, I think patterns of consciousness, because we can't figure this shit out. Patterns of consciousness, patterns of human behavior, that's what's useful. That's what we're going to be able to actually use to move forward, to do something with it. Because, as you say, when it gets down to a point of the most materialist, when it's just like mathematics on top of mathematics on top of mathematics, then you get to the fucking freshman geometry, and they're like, how am I going to use this? And that's a valid question.
Yeah.
That's a valid fucking question. Mm-hmm. How am I going to use this? Even rocketry in this country. I mean, L. Ron Hubbard was hanging out with Jack Parsons and the Caltech guys. Jack Parsons was a straight up fucking Thelema Aleister Crowley follower. You know what I mean? And he was one of the main people involved in the rockets that we have for NASA. Mm-hmm. All the Caltech guys were crazy like that. It was all about magic for them. That's where L. Ron Hubbard got all his craziness from, because he was hanging out with all those guys. He lived with Jack Parsons. But I think you eventually reach that point if you're humble, to be like, nah, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Like, it's magic.
Yep.
It's magic.
And I think the ability for certain people to embrace that and go, it's okay that I don't have all the answers.
Mm-hmm. No, it's fucking fantastic. Thank God I don't have all the answers.
Right.
Because where would the journey be?
There would be no journey.
And having all the answers is the definition of totalitarianism.
Yeah.
You're a totalitarian when you believe that even all the answers are possible. Like, okay, here's the system set in stone. It's a box.
Yep.
Never this system will change. It has all the answers for everything. You can get all the answers. You're a totalitarian.
Yeah. You're a totalitarian, and you're ignorant, and you're arrogant, and it leads to horrible, horrible things for the world.
Agreed. Every single time.
Every time.
And I think that's the big reveal. I think the big reveal is like, We don't know what the fuck is going on. And it's only the end. Well, this is the thing. It's only the end. It's not the end. But if you think it's the end, it's going to be very, very painful for you.
Sure. And it's only the end of this part of the story. The story continues.
Right.
The story always continues.
It's an infinite game.
It's an infinite game. So, if you're looking at the end, like enhance your thinking. Take your thinking up a few levels and think of it from the standpoint of a Rothschild or a Pharaoh, and think, or a whiskey distiller who says, I'm going to barrel this thing for 75 years and, my grandson's going to actually sell it.
My grandson, who I don't even know because my son hasn't even been born yet, or my daughter.
Right. Yeah.
I have no children. I'm a single man, and I'm putting this in here knowing that my grandchild is going to do it. That's a motherfucker right there.
Yep. But that's the level of thinking that leads to a more humble view of the world where you don't have to have all the answers. You can just let nature do its magic, and you can let things progress in their time and know that, you've got a plan, and your plan is going to be fulfilled at some point in the future.
And and to know that it's not even your plan.
Yeah.
Like you're participating in a plan.
Sure, because you could be the grandson of the guy that started this,
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a worldview that too few people have today.
I think it's a good conversation to start, and I'm glad that we've started it here because it's something I've been thinking about, and I think that we've reached such a fever pitch of short time horizons that I have a feeling that those who now embrace the longer time horizon are going to be rewarded greatly.
Absolutely.
Let's just put it like that.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a world where putting a cup in a Keurig and hitting the button is too long.
To be honest, I do it every morning, but it's not too long, but it's fucking fantastic. I love
40 seconds to a fresh, hot cup of coffee.
It's lovely.
It's awesome. It's a miracle. It's magic. 40 seconds to hot coffee. But yet, to today's mind, it is, oh my God, this thing's taking forever.
Waiting is boring. My daughter told me that as we waited 3 minutes for popcorn to pop in the microwave. Waiting is boring, Papa. Waiting is boring. And I said, no, well, we can enjoy ourselves while we wait. Well, people will have to wait a week to see. Well, are we going to do Destination Unknown next week?
Heck yeah. The week after, okay. I'm going to be on vacation.
Okay,
but next week we are on.
Then they will wait a week to see Destination Unknown because we're done. We've fulfilled our promise. Because we started a little late, so we gave you a little extra. This was good, man.
A great conversation.
Great conversation, yeah. Great way to come back after the little bit of a break. A lot for me to think about. It's good. I may start writing in on the book this week, just thanks to this conversation. So, all right, brother, thank you so much. We will see you guys next week. Oh, bitbacker.io/ you could just, I think, /user/Vin Armani. Do a little tip. You can do Bitcoin BTC, Bitcoin Cash, or Smart Cash. JJ Hales, if you're checking this out, we had a great time talking with you, and thank you for all of your work there. We're really enjoying being on Bitbacker. All right, guys, we will see you next week on Destination Unknown.